What up, everybody? This is the Dr. Football Ultimate Patriots Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Dennis Tien. What is going on, world? It has been a minute since we recorded, since before the first game of the first preseason, and a lot has happened. This is the place to be. If you're interested in the NFL, you're interested in the New England Patriots, we've got an hour of commercial-free talk about the Patriots and this roster, which is just breaking right now as we record. A fresh 53-man roster, all the latest cuts from today, earlier this weekend. We're going to get into all of that. We're going to get into Bill Belichick throwing shade at the Krafts. We're going to get into Mike Vrabel throwing shade at his own front office and a bunch of other stuff around the NFL and around the league. Joining me, as always, is the CEO of Hedge Better himself, Justin Fine. What is going on, Justin? How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, man. You know what? It's finally getting to that time. You know, the fantasy drafts are happening, the final 53-man roster cuts. You know, we got football back literally next week. I mean, it was a long summer, long off season, but we're back.
Yeah, well, before we even get into the whole roster, I do want to say that, can we just agree that the NFL preseason has somehow, it gets less and less useful and purposeful every year, just when you think it can't get any more useless or meaningless, and then somehow it eclipses that. And I'm going to tell you that for the first time in as long as I can remember, I did not watch the preseason game on Thursday night, and I don't regret that. I don't feel like I missed anything about that. I think it was a complete sham, a travesty of a game, right? And this preseason, Justin, I'm so glad it's over because it is just a joke.
Yeah, well, you know what? I did watch the game, and like you said, you didn't miss much. It was, you know, a bunch of third string guys, and you know, it was kind of a waste of time, to be completely honest. You know, and here's the thing. Look, I would be way more in favor of like one preseason game where, you know, you get your guys out there, you get them a good run, and then they got like 3 weeks off until the season begins so that you got time to rest, recover, anything like that. But you got at least one game that you can go full throttle, get your starters some reps. But you know what? Like all across the league by week 3 of the preseason, I mean, it was just all, you know, junk ball pretty much.
It was total junk ball. And I think the NFL has to move to a 18-game regular season, maybe 2 bye weeks, Super Bowl on President's Day weekend, and eliminating this third preseason game. I can stomach this for 2 weeks, but when you get to this third week, it is just totally unwatchable drivel. And that's really, and I'm as big a fan, as you know this, as anyone. I'm interested in the bottom of this roster. The problem was there was like 5 guys that ultimately made the team that even saw the field last Thursday night. So it was really a glorified JV scrimmage.
Exactly. Look, if you could tell me that the third game was being used for, you know, serious decision making, right? Guys who were battling, you know, guys who was really coming down to the wire, it'd be one thing. But how often do you get that in these preseason games? Like, I feel like the coaching staff in the front office, their minds, I feel like, are pretty made up heading into that third week.
Yeah, 100%. And by the time they get to that third week, nobody wants to get anybody hurt. And that's all everyone really cares about for the most part. And that was a trend across the league. All right, let's get to this roster, Justin. Fresh. We're recording at like 4:40 on Tuesday. We're still trying to figure out a few names because I don't think we've seen all of the roster move the Patriots have made yet. There was 15 cuts over the weekend. 12 or 13 more cuts today. Short of 1 or 2 notable exceptions, Cole Strange, I can't find any information on him yet. I'm sure that will break while we're recording. But short of 1 or 2 exceptions, we now know what this 53-man roster is. Justin, what are your initial thoughts looking at who's here, who's not here, and the ultimate 53 that the Patriots are rolling with in 2025?
You know, honestly, I'm sure there's a couple guys that you could say, you know, could have gone either way. But if I'm being completely honest, you know, from what we've seen initially, like nothing's really shocked me or stood out. I think a lot of what we've seen so far, we kind of expected. The one thing that I will say is, you know, a few weeks ago, hearing that they were going to trim the wide receiver room down to, 5 or 6 guys, like I just didn't think that was realistic from Jump Street. I mean, the fact that they wound up going with what looks to be 8 wide receivers, I think that was probably always kind of going to happen. So I don't know. I'm just not super shocked by anything, but I'm not super disappointed by anything either.
Let's talk about that decision to go with they're rolling with 8 wide receivers, which I think is interesting because we said in the preseason, and everyone I think has been saying the whole preseason, that there was going to have to be a tough cut in this wide receiver room. And when it comes down to it, there really wasn't. They hired Ja'Lynn Polk, who, by the way, his career is over. We're never going to see that. No. Ja'Lynn Polk is destined to be a training camp cut in 2026. Mm-hmm. It'll be a couple of years from when they drafted him. It will be less embarrassing. Have zero expectations that guy's career is going anywhere.
Yep.
Blowing draft pick from the day it was made. We panned it. Most people panned it. Should have taken Ladd McConkey. You can pull the tapes.
Yeah.
We said it that day, that literal day after we recorded, and we said it. Everyone said it. Total fail pick, blown pick by Elliott Wolf. Huge mistake. Fine. He's gone on IR. They keep Kendrick Bourne, which I personally like because a veteran receiver, I mean, that, we've seen Bourne able to do some things. So I don't think it hurts them to have a guy like that on this roster.
Well, and that's exactly the thing is, when we were talking about having to make tough cuts and they were saying, they're going to cut it down to maybe 5 or 6 guys. Like I was looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, you're either going to have to cut to your point, a veteran, right, who you desperately need on this roster, or B, you're going to have to cut someone who really never got a fair shake from the start. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that they really didn't, let some of these guys go. I'm glad to see Javon Baker get another chance. Not that I think he's anything special, but I just don't think he was given a chance to properly develop and be utilized last year in this offense. I mean, I'm glad Efton Chisholm made it. I think he's arguably got the most potential out of any of the guys that are on that wide receiving room, and the rest are veterans. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with what they wound up doing.
I mean, Bourne is one of their 53 best players. That's what it comes down to. And one of the things you've heard this whole week from all sorts of corners in the media is that they really might not have 53 NFL caliber players on this roster, that the starters on this roster are much better this year than they were last year, but the depth still is lacking, and that shouldn't be a surprise because they've blown 4 straight drafts. So when you blew last year's draft and you've got 1 player left on this active roster from last year's draft, then your depth is going to suffer. But I guess my point is, really, you can't say Kendrick Bourne isn't one of the 53 best players. You can't say Kyle Duggar, another name that everyone thought was going to get cut, isn't one of their 53 best players. I felt Duggar was going to make it. I'm glad they kept him.
Yeah.
They went with their best 53, and you can't cut veteran guys like that.
No, and not to mention the fact that, look, take it back to the beginning of the Vrabel tenure. They came in and cleaned out some guys who were considered veterans on this team, right? Established veterans. And so, you can only go so far with that. I don't think you can completely tear everything down to the ground. And so, look, I mean, some of these guys that they kept, nobody's saying that they have to start all 17 games. Nobody's saying that, they have to be, all pros, but they have a place on the roster and they have a purpose.
100%. What about, Justin, another thing, I'm looking at this roster right now, and I don't think we've talked enough about this preseason is the kicker situation on this team. And I am very nervous for a young team that I think is not maybe going to start the year off with the best offense. I think they're going to be in a lot of close games, and the value of a reliable kicker cannot be overstated.
Right.
They are going to roll into this year with 6th-round pick Andy Borregales as their kicker. If he had a decent camp, I would feel a lot better about that. He has looked awful in these games. I did see he missed a 49-yard kick on Thursday, and he missed it by a mile. So I'm nervous about the kicking situation. I think that they will lose a game or two because of this kicker.
Well, you know what? What wouldn't surprise me is because, look, we talked about this, I think, a few weeks ago or a few episodes ago, that, the Nick Folks of the world are a dime a dozen, right? They're out there and, they're just waiting to be signed. There's plenty of veteran kickers that I think you could bring in that could be reliable. They might not have the biggest legs or be the flashiest guys, but, you can rely on them. I think if Borregales shows in the first couple games that he doesn't have what it takes, I think he'll be gone pretty quickly, to be honest. But Vrabel doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to keep him around all season and let him cost him games continuously.
But from all accounts and from the preseason games, it felt like the Parker Romo outkicked him. So I was surprised that they went with this guy, and I'm nervous because if you can't kick a 49-yard field goal, we're not talking about a 65-yard. We're talking about Lou the Toe Groza here in the frozen tundra. We're talking about 49 yards on AstroTurf in August, and if you're missing those kicks, it just makes me so nervous for what this guy is going to be like when it really counts. And I mean, you hope he grows into the role as the season goes along, but we've seen that go both ways in New England, right? Adam Vinatieri started terrible.
Yeah.
Gostkowski missed a big kick early, and they both became great, right?
Right.
But we've also seen Scott Sissons. That's way before your time. We've seen, a more recent guy, Ryland, is an example of a guy that ended up salvaging his career, but got a terrible start here. So these guys can go either way,
Well, I mean, how much of it do you think is a little bit of saying, hey, we're going to roll the dice to try to save face a little bit? Because we talk about all the blown draft picks in New England over the last few years. Like, is some of it just not wanting to cut a guy that you spent draft capital on a few months ago? Like,
I hope not, because if it is, that just tells me that they really haven't fixed the problem yet in that front office, in spite of a supposed new regime. So, I mean, it's hard to say from what we've seen, and we're not at every practice, right? But from what us, the fans of the media, have seen, it's hard to say that Borregales won the job based on merit. So,
yeah, I mean, well, you know what? Look, he didn't impress me, but I think you're getting I don't think we have to look too hard to find the answer. I think you got a guy that you drafted, you spent draft capital on him. They're gonna give him a shot to see if he can prove himself. You believe in him, right? You're gonna give him a shot in the first couple games to see if he can settle into the role and prove himself. And if he can't, you hit for you hit the waivers or free agency or whatever, and you go and you sign a guy off the bench that can come in and play the Nick Folk role.
And the kickoff thing too, I guess, is a thing too, because he's a better kickoff guy. But, Justin, I do think one of the surprises of the offseason was, again, we're going to hear this over and over again. They have $60 million in cap room remaining. How do you not bring in a veteran kicker? I feel like, if they lose, say, 19-17 against Pittsburgh in week 3 and they fall to 1-2 or 0-3, and now they're facing an uphill battle for the rest of, we're going to look at this decision again of not signing a veteran kicker and really regretting it. And I'm just thinking of how they plucked Nick Folk off the garbage heap. Right. And he was their best player for 2 years, right? Yeah. And these guys are out there. So how did you not bring one in? I don't get it.
Yeah, no. And again, I wouldn't be shocked if in a couple of weeks, one of them isn't here. You know what I mean? I guess I guess I can see what they're doing right now, but Vrabel does not strike me as the kind of guy, like I said, that will keep dilly-dallying and let the kicking game keep costing them opportunities if it shows to be a problem early on in the season.
Oh, yeah. Vrabel will decapitate this guy if he misses a few, honestly. So,
yeah.
And I think that's only going to put more pressure on a rookie, too. I really – I'm very nervous about the kicking situation. Okay, Justin, it did just break a few minutes ago that Cole Strange was among the 21 cuts from today. So that I think is a real capstone on the final years of the Bill Belichick era. And really just, let's face it, we all panned the Cole Strange pick from day one. Sean McVay laughed when he heard Cole Strange was the Patriots' first-round pick. Yeah. This was a bizarre pick from the day it was made. Mm-hmm. You're looking at this roster right now, And we're talking about how there's huge gaping holes on the offensive line. There's huge gaping holes at the guard, in the left guard position in particular. And you just cut your first round pick from 3 years ago. I'll tell you, this is a real capstone on just how terrible Bill Belichick was his final few years here.
Yeah, I understand, he obviously clearly didn't live up to the first round hype, but by the same token, like, you would think he could settle into a depth role in an O-line room that is nothing special. You know what I mean? Like, this is a very average, middle of the pack offensive line room. The fact
we
that
hope,
right? We
hope
exactly.
It's average.
We hope. Like, the fact that you couldn't find like a depth role for him, I think just really speaks to how bad it got. And who knows too? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe, you know what? Like we were saying a few minutes ago, I think before we started recording, Belichick took a couple shots at the Patriots. Maybe that was another shot at Belichick in a way. Like, say, look at what you did.
Well, there is a piece to that, I think, because, Vrabel has made a concerted effort to cut all ties with the past. That's the Mayo and the Belichick years. There's no question about that, Justin. And that might have worked against Cole Strange, but I have to wonder, a team, as you said, that's desperate for offensive line help. And I have to think, if this guy could play in the league at all, he's on this roster, because this is such a position of not only need, but importance with a young quarterback, and protecting your young quarterback. So I think it's really simple. I think Cole Strange could not play in this league. Like most 4th or 5th round picks are not ultimately meant for success in the NFL. And most 4th or 5th round picks get a training camp or two to show that they're the anomaly. And if they're not, they're gone. And Cole Strange was a 4th or 5th round pick that was taken in the first round by Bill Belichick in his waning years, where he clearly didn't have commander mastery of the draft anymore. And it will go down as an epic screw up for Belichick, really, and a very unfortunate break for this franchise. That this guy, it's pretty obvious he doesn't belong on an NFL field. I'm very curious to see if anyone else will take a chance on him.
Me too. Because I think that'd be telling if he gets picked up and brought in somewhere else. I mean, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, as of right now, he joins a long and growing list of draft busts and wasted picks here in New England over recent memory.
I want to talk a little bit, Justin, about change topics and talk a little bit about Kyle Duggar, who was a guy that was sort of on the chopping block all through training camp. Everybody thought he was going to get cut. And I felt like, again, one of their best 53 players belongs on this roster. Mm-hmm. I'm glad they kept Kyle Duggar. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
I'm glad they kept him too. I mean, look, I think you're really going to need a strong defense this year, right? And you're going to need veteran presence out there. You got rid of some of your defensive veterans, right? You got rid of your Bentleys and a few other guys. And look, maybe people are saying he's not performing up to par. They're not getting what they expected out of him. I still think he's good enough to be on this roster. I still think he serves a role. He's a veteran at the very least. And I think he's serviceable. I don't think he's going to be one of the best safeties in the league, but you can't tell me that the guy doesn't have a spot in this defense.
We've seen him be a Pro Bowl caliber safety, and
he's flashed. He's totally flashed at times, for sure.
He had a bad year last year. Maybe he's not a scheme fit, but we've seen Kyle Duggar when he's at his best. He is a borderline Pro Bowl caliber safety, a veteran presence on a team that, I'm sorry, if they cut Kyle Duggar, all of a sudden this safety room is looking really thin. Yep. So I never got it. I think, to be honest, that was all posturing. I think they would have traded Kyle Duggar. If they could have got someone to take that $15 million cap hit, I think they would have dealt with it. But I think they were never going to cut him. That's just my personal opinion. It was never realistic they were going to actually just cut him.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I'm glad they didn't, honestly.
100%. And then one more. When we recorded 3 weeks ago, I had said I thought Ramondre Stevenson might be the surprise cut. Now, we did not record since then, but if we had, I would have brought that take into take revision after watching the first two preseason games, because I think it was clear that, look, I don't love Stevenson. I think he's an average to above average player. His cap number is huge, but this team has a ton of cap room, and it's very obvious that they're going to run the ball a lot, especially at the start of the year.
Yep.
And I feel like, especially given there was no young up and coming, like obviously they have Henderson, fine, but like beyond that, there's no fourth guy in this room that could take his job. Like JaMychal Hasty or the other guy, Lan Larson, got hurt. So I really felt like, yes, even though Stevenson was kind of at risk, I felt like he was probably safe because they need someone to carry the ball while this offense develops.
Yeah, and you know what? Stevenson's another guy that at times he really has flashed and looked good,
Yep.
and at other times he's looked awful and he's actually cost them games, right? And look, the fumbling, I don't think any of us have forgotten about that, right? That's still that's still kind of a skeleton in his closet. And I think he's going to get a chance, but just like we were talking about with the kicking situation, if Rhamondre Stevenson comes out and has a couple of costly fumbles, doesn't look too good, I can easily see him sliding down to the back of that depth chart. But look, at times he has flashed. He can still be, your power back, I think, if you need him to, if you can just hold on to the ball. And I think he deserves a chance. Now that you got somebody like TreVeyon Henderson in there, he doesn't need to kind of be your bell cow. I think, looking back on it, Rhamondre Stevenson really, I thought, was at his best when he was paired with Damian Harris
Yep.
They got to do that whole 1-2 punch type of thing, right? And he didn't have to be the bell cow back. And so, you know what? Hopefully he kind of gets back to that a little bit. You take some of the load off him, and maybe that will lead to a reduction in turnovers.
That's the hope. That's the hope. I mean, I think that Stevenson has looked good in the preseason too. When he's carried the ball, like he looked really fast and healthy and good. And like you said, they're going to be able to manage his load this year, which I think will help with the turnovers and the fumbles. He doesn't have to be the man.
Right.
And Mike Vrabel was the guy. I mean, offensively, what is he most famous for? Well, it's Derrick Henry. And guys like that are a dime a dozen. I mean, excuse me, the opposite. Guys like that are hard to find, right? So if you can't find a Derrick Henry, a three-headed monster to kind of, be sort of a facsimile of that is probably the best you can do. And I really think that's what this team is going to roll with, especially in the early weeks. You're going to see a lot of that ground game and sort of this three-headed monster with Gibson, Henderson, and Stevenson. Stevenson might be the worst back, of the three right now, but that's okay. It's still, I think, a position of strength on this team right now.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, I think, by all accounts, we are seeing that they want to be a run the ball first. They want to establish that ground and pound, and they don't want to have to make Drake May go out there and be a Joe Burrow, right? That's not what Drake May is at this point in his career. He could get there, but I think it's kind of, smart on their part to say, hey, we're not going to ask Drake May to do too much right out the gate. He's still, I get it, it's year 2, but he's got a new offense, a new offensive coordinator. He's got new weapons, new O-line, so to speak, in many respects. Ease the guy into the season, let him fall behind his run game.
Yeah, that was what we were going to talk about next. And my question for you, because I do want to talk about Drake May some. We see this 53-man roster, right? And here's my question for you. Did they do enough did they do enough for Drake May this offseason, right? With this roster that you see, the final 53 men in front of us, did they do enough to protect him? Did they do enough to, a la the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams, surround him with young talent? And so do you think they did enough for Drake this offseason?
So I think there's a difference between did they try to do a lot and did they do enough, right? And I think they did a lot. I think they severely or they seriously, improved the running game to try to take the load off them by bringing in someone like Travion Henderson, right? They drafted a left tackle in the first round. They brought in Morgan Moses. They revamped their offensive playbook and brought in Josh McDaniels. They go out and get Stephon Diggs. They keep 8 receivers on the roster, which I think is in a way kind of tangentially speaking to that, saying they're trying to find guys who can help Drake May. So I think they've done a good amount. Is it going to be enough? That I think is still yet to be determined. And I could really go either way on that right now.
I'm going to answer my own question, and I'm going to give you a definitive no. They did not do enough to help Drake May. They have $60 million or so in cap room. And, in terms of like getting the dynamic number 1 star receiver, I think they did try their best to do that. And I think Stephon Diggs was probably the best that they could do. But there were linemen available. There were guards and tackles available, starting caliber average players. You're overpaying for them, but you have cap room. They didn't have to go into this year with the kind of offensive holes on the offensive line they didn't have. I go back to the kicker thing because I think a good kicker really is going to help a young quarterback and take some pressure off him. So, no, I don't think they did enough to help Drake May. And let's be clear about one thing. We've been talking for years about the rookie contract, the 4 to 5 year window when you draft that quarterback high. And I mean, this is year 2 for Drake May of that. Yeah. So we're already like halfway through it, and it just doesn't feel they did a lot, but I still don't feel like they did enough.
Yeah. And I think, I would kind of agree with that. I think I do think they did a lot, but there are still holes. And like you said, when you have that much money left over, you sit back and you wonder what else you could have done. You know what I mean? So yeah, I agree. I don't think it was enough. Like I don't think they put him in like a Bo Nix type of situation, or you know what I mean? Some of those guys that right. But I do think they tried, and I think this offense is going to be improved. But like you said, I think there are still some holes, and with the money they still have, you can make a real argument that they didn't do enough.
What is this offense going to look like, Justin? Now that we see the final roster, because I'm gonna throw out what I think. 2021, Mac Jones. That's what you're going to see. Now, I'm not saying Drake May. I think he's way better quarterback than Mac Jones, but the way this team is built, everything that happened last year, I think that you're looking at a very 2021 Mac Jones like offense for Drake May and the Patriots for like 6 to 8 weeks. And your hope is by November or December, you're much better than that. But I think you're going to see that 2021 kind of offense for certainly the first 4 to 8 weeks of the year. No doubt about it.
I mean, I would agree with that. I don't think this is a 30-point per game offense, right? I think this is going to be, a team that, again, tries to, run the ball for clock management. I think they're going to try to lean on their defense. I think they're hopefully going to be more disciplined than the Patriots teams we've seen the last couple of years and not shoot themselves in the foot with costly penalties and turnovers. But I mean, I would be shocked if this was some sort of high-flying offense. Now, right. I think Josh McDaniels is going to give you the best shot that you can to get the most that you can with what you have right now. But I still think you're going to be a 17 to 24 point per game offense at this point, at least in the first half of the season.
Yeah. I do think that. And I think you're going to see them try to protect Drake May. I think you're going to see a lot of running in the red zone. I don't think they're going to put the ball in May's hands a lot. I think you're going to see lots of draws on 3rd and 12s and playing for punts and field position, that kind of stuff. Just like, in 2021, we were pulling our hair out when they were doing that, but they were really protecting Mac Jones from himself. Yeah. And I think May does need a little bit of that. He obviously has a much higher upside, but I feel like there's a ton of pressure on Drake May. I feel like there are still a lot of holes on this roster. I feel like this is a new offense for him. And if you add it all up, I just think that they're going to come in and they're going to be they're not going to ask a lot of Drake May for the first 1 to 2 months of the year.
I agree. And the one thing that I will say about Drake May that I don't think gets talked about enough is the fact that Drake May is a very good running quarterback, right?
Yes.
And I think he's going to be the type of guy that I hope we're not afraid to say, hey, look, because what was one of our biggest criticisms of Mac Jones, right? When the play would break down and when the pressure would come into the pocket, he would panic. He would absolutely panic. He would chuck the ball up. He would make stupid decisions, right? Drake May is the type of quarterback who, when something breaks down, he can make something out of nothing with his feet, right? And so I hope that they give him the opportunity, even if it's not, to go out there and be a gunslinger. I hope they at least give him the opportunity to use his full repertoire and make plays with his feet. And I think he'll do that. And I think that'll actually really help him when things get a little sticky out there.
Yeah, but that could also lead to turnovers too.
It could. It could lead to turnovers if he doesn't protect the ball, right? Like we've seen him not slide at times when he should. Like we've seen him maybe, I don't know. I think that it can help him more than it can hurt him, but it can certainly hurt him.
Yeah, and I think, that's what I think. Like to me, Justin, like honestly, like look, May has amazing playmaking ability, but if I'm Vrabel and McDaniels, I'm trying to contain the beast a little bit in those first 4 to 6 weeks because I still think he's at a position in his career, as much as I like him, where he is still more. I think he's more likely to make a bad play than a good play when he tries to do too much. And I think that you look at guys like Mahomes and Allen, and they have this sense of the game where when they try to do something, they make a big play. It usually works. I don't think he has that ability, but I just don't think he's there yet. And I think that they're going to try and really contain that right now until he gets a better sense of the game. And one of the real questions for me about May is you look back to last year, and yeah, he turned the ball over a lot. They lost a lot of games, right? It was a shit show. It was an absolute dumpster fire last year. Drake May was the bright spot. He looked in command. He looked in control. Go back and watch the Colts game. Go back and watch the Rams game. Go back and watch the second Bills game. He was not overwhelmed or flustered. But I wonder how that was all under Alex Van Pelt's tutelage and what they were doing to protect him. And I wonder how that's going to translate into a whole new offense, a Josh McDaniel offense, a more complicated offense. I think I think it's one of the real questions surrounding him is what, if any, does the progress that he made last year, how does that translate? Is that going to translate into progress in this offense this year?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great question to ask. I do have confidence though. I do. And the one thing, that I would say, and I guess it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg argument, is I totally get what you're saying. By the same token, you look back and, I think you said something very important when you said that Stephon Diggs was probably the best that the Patriots could have done in terms of adding a weapon, right? And one of the things I'll say about that is good receivers, superstar receivers, want to come play with a good quarterback, right? In a good offense. And so what I don't want them to do is try so hard to protect Drake May that he doesn't get to shine in this offense, doesn't get to turn into something that's going to attract big free agents to want to come here in the future. Because this place was basically wide receiver purgatory for the last couple of years, right? Nobody wanted to come here.
100%.
Stephon Diggs, I think it was a big move bringing him in here. But Drake May has to go out and show that he can support a number one receiver. He can support an offense that can score and put up points. So I think it's a fine line you have to walk, but I don't want them to hinder the development of this offense too much and potentially jeopardize getting some big names in here in the future.
Well, what I would say, Justin, is that if you're a Patriots fan, you want to look at Josh Allen's second year as the template for Drake May this year. We were laughing at Josh Allen after his rookie year, and we were laughing at him at the start of his second year because there was a lot of stupid plays, bad turnovers, trying to do too much, all the above. By the end of his second year, he was laughing at us when they made the playoffs, and he was a much better player. And they've been laughing ever since at us, right? Because now we can barely beat them. So I think that Josh Allen's second year, where I think he threw 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, by the end of that season, you could tell that he had stepped to that next level. He certainly was not there at the beginning of the year. I think that's the template for this year for Drake May.
Yeah, totally. And look, I mean, he's got like you said, he's got the running game. I think he's got a good defense. He doesn't have to do too much right out of the gate, but I do want to see that progression, from the start of the year to the end of it. And I feel pretty good about the fact that he will make that progression, and the offense as a whole will make that progression. But there's still question marks. It's no guarantee at all at this point.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit before we get to the non-football topic of the week, which I have a great one for you, and I'm totally springing it on you as a surprise because I didn't even run it by you, but I'm doing it anyways.
All right.
Do we want to just talk a little bit about Belichick, like dropping shade big time at the Crafts last week with some of his comments about how when someone asked him how was UNC, and his answer was there's no owner and there's no owner's son. Do you have any thoughts about that?
You know what? I think there's no sugarcoating that. You know what I mean? There's no ambiguity. That's very direct and pointed. And it does actually make you wonder how involved Josh Kraft, right? Jonathan. Yeah, sorry. How involved Jonathan Kraft was towards the end of the Bill Belichick tenure, and how much maybe that had to do with some of what we saw play out. But I mean, make no mistakes about it. Like, he didn't mince words. That's a very, very direct comment.
It was very direct. And I'm going to say right now, like, it kind of annoyed me because we were just talking about Cole Strange, and like, you can make a list. Tyquan Thornton, Kyle Duggar's on the cutting block, barely made the team. Bill Belichick had so much power and leeway and influence in this organization and yielded so little results after Tom Brady left. It is an absolute joke that he points the finger in any way at the Crafts when it was really his bad decision making. And let's not forget, do you know who Harry Frazee is? Harry Frazee?
I don't know.
You ever heard that name?
No.
He's the owner of the Red Sox that sold Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees. Okay.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick, that's you. That's you. You sold Tom Brady. Brady should have never, ever left Foxborough. The Crafts backed you in the worst personnel decision in the history of the NFL, the worst personnel decision since Babe Ruth was sold to the Yankees. And you're sitting there blaming them when they put their neck out there for you and you screwed them. They had to watch Tom Brady win a Super Bowl in Tampa Bay because of what you sold them that was wrong. And you're drafting Tyquan Thornton and Cole Strange. I mean, come on. Let's not go into revisionist history. Love you, mean it, Bill Belichick. But let's not rewrite the last 5 years here because they were bad. And let's not blame the Crafts, all right?
Yeah, I just think it's a bad look for Belichick, man. Like, I think it just comes off as like really petty. I mean, especially you consider the fact that he really, didn't do a good job rebuilding this organization after he made the egregious mistake of letting Brady go. He kind of left here on a pretty low note. It was contentious. It's like he's just now at this point, I think you're just leaving a bad taste in everybody's mouth. And it's like, you know what? It's such a shame because he really is arguably the greatest coach of all time. He had so much success. He did so many good things here. And now I feel like he's just kind of like unraveling all of it with his mouth and his actions.
And it's not just his mouth. It's the whole thing with Jordan and like now they've got like, can you imagine? You have a Hulu documentary coming into UNC. I mean, didn't we say for years that we would never see Hard Knocks in New England? That Belichick would never allow. And now he's like actively soliciting to bring a documentary into his locker room at UNC.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like I want the Belichick of old back. Like I don't know what happened to this guy. But he just like he's gone off the rails at the end here, and it's actually kind of sad to be honest with you. But like it's not pretty to watch. Just the whole thing. Love Belichick. You were there last June. So was I.
Yep.
We shared. We stood. We know what Belichick means to this franchise. It is not pretty to watch these final days. I hope he wins. I really do, because if he goes like 4-8 this year at UNC,
I know
it's gonna even be uglier.
I know. Yeah, insult to injury at this point. So yeah, I hope he just keeps his mouth shut in focuses on what he's doing now. But yeah, the new Belichick, honestly, I was a little pleasantly surprised when he left here and he started showing more of his personality and talking to the media a little bit more. And then the pendulum just totally swung in the other direction, and he way overcompensated and started to do too much. You know, way
overcompensated. So, he way overcompensated. Give me the old Belichick back, please. All right. Well, I think let's pass on Vrabel. The Vrabel calling out rats in his organization thing, unless you feel strongly about talking to that, because I feel like it's time to change. I feel like it's time for the non-football topic of the week. Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, it's August 26th. We're recording this. Summer is almost over.
Yep.
You've had summer. You've done all the summer stuff.
Yep.
It's all fresh in your mind.
Yep.
What, Justin, is your summer pet peeve? And if you need a minute to think of one, I can give you mine.
My summer pet peeve.
What is the thing that people do in the summer that drives you insane? Like a summer thing that people do that drives you insane? Because I got one.
Okay, you go, because I'm going to think on this one for a second.
All right, I'm going to give you mine. And this happens to me every time I go to the damn beach. Okay. Yep. Who are these people that think that if you're at the beach, you want to hear their music? I cannot stand people that play music at the beach. Nobody wants to hear your weird, crappy, 1970s or whatever, whatever. Nobody wants to hear it. Please get a pair of earbuds, headphones, anything. Spare us, please. No music at the beach.
Yeah. No, I love that one. I think it's one of those things where like that I feel like is just a general, it's just general consideration not to be obnoxious in public, like with other people.
Right. It's a crowded place. Like a public beach is a crowded place.
Yeah.
This happened to me this weekend because like I'm at the beach, with my kids, and the guy next to us, who we know, by the way, because he has a house nearby us, and he's like playing this like weird like 70s funk jazz, and he's like grooving, he's like loving, he's like, oh, this music is so good. He even said it, and I'm like, someone punched my eardrums out. This shit's awful. And it's like, why do people do it? I don't get it.
Yeah, I know. I love that one. I think that's one that's like becoming more of an increasing issue. I feel like. Look, mine I think is kind of low hanging fruit. I don't really know how you feel about it, but the one that I think annoys me a little bit is just the obligatory at this time of the year, end of August, beginning of September, having to listen to everybody go, "Oh, this summer flew by. This summer flew by." You know what? It's the same amount of time every year. It's the same thing every year. The fall comes, the summer comes and goes. Okay. You know what? You got opportunities to do what you want. Go on vacation, go to the beach, enjoy the weather, blah, blah, blah. But everyone acts like for some reason, these 3 months move quicker than the other seasons. I'm sick of hearing it. Oh, this summer flew by. This summer flew by. It always flies by. Nobody wants the summer to end.
Well, first of all, this summer flew by, said no one that has school-age kids.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Because if you have kids, at this point, you're counting the days.
Yeah.
And I love my kids. And I love spending time with my kids. And I love vacationing with my kids. But we have had a summer of fun and activity. Like, we have summered this year. Right. And like, it's time for it to end. It's time. We need to get back to boredom and routine and structure. We can't do this. This is not sustainable, what we've done the last 10 weeks. You're right. It has been a long summer for me. Like, I'm ready for it to be over.
Yeah. And you know what? It's like, I don't know, but just I think for people like us who love football season, it's like, I'm ready to get into the fall. I'm ready for hoodie and sweatpants weather. I'm ready for, football to get back in action. I'm ready for the nice cool breezes. I love the fall around here. New England's a great place for the fall. So you know what? I enjoy the summer, but I'm never disappointed when the fall hits.
I 1000% agree. And also too, like the humidity, it just gets to be a lot. Like after a few days of that, I mean, it's not really like, it's not pleasant. The weather, especially, I think like 20 years ago, the weather here in the summer was a lot better because we didn't have as much heat and we didn't have as much humidity.
Right.
You got a lot of like 82-degree comfortable days. Now July is like a furnace, and it's like a wet furnace.
Yeah.
So it's really not enjoyable. The best weather of the year now is actually September and October. And,
totally.
Justin, the joy of living in New England is 4 seasons. And we really do have 4 great seasons here. So I do love and appreciate all 4 of them. The only time of year that I really hate living in New England is late spring, because like that's when you're like, okay, I'm ready for this to be over with. And then you get those tease days where it's really nice. Yeah. And then you go 2 days later and it's terrible again. And it goes back and forth like that for 6 weeks. Exactly. And it drives you insane.
Yeah. Those 40-degree days in April where you're just like, what happened?
Yep. You're like, I'm done with this shit. Like I'm moving to Carolina. I'm telling you about it. But I mean, like truthfully, the 4 seasons here is one of the pleasures of living here. So I agree with you 1,000%. People should be embracing fall at this point.
Totally.
All right, let's go to Around the League, and we're going to whip out a new segment on the show, a new feature on the show that I have concocted in all my spare time, and that is totally said tongue-in-cheek if you didn't realize that, but it is called 3 for All. 3 into the future. See, I haven't got my own damn segment wrong. 3 into the future, where we are going to now make 3 picks for the future of the NFL, of football this year. And Justin, I have my 3, but I'm deferring towards you first. You give me yours first. Or we can alternate if you want.
Yeah, what do you want to do? You want me to give my 3? You want to go 1 and 1?
Let's go 1 and 1. You go first.
Okay. All right. So
3 into the future.
If you've listened to this podcast before, I don't think any of my 3 are going to be huge surprises, but I'm solidifying them. I'm doubling down, and I'm putting them officially on the record heading into this football season. Here is the first one. Okay. We talked a couple episodes ago about who was going to come in last in the divisions, right? And I am locking in that the Miami Dolphins will come in last in the AFC East. But that's not my prediction. That's just a setup, okay? The Dolphins are going to come in last in the AFC East. Their wide receiver room, I think, is going down, right? Tyreek Hill is on his way out. They have a bottom 5 offensive line. Their quarterback's 1 hit away from his career being over. Their running back room is decimated by injuries, and I think they have a bottom 5 defense in the NFL. Not to mention that the locker room and the chemistry is in shambles. I think it's the coach is a flake. The coach is a flake. It's a dysfunctional organization. All that is to say that I think Mike McDaniel is going to be the first coach fired in this NFL season.
I love that take, Justin, because if you look at that Miami team, you can start to see the signs of them decompensating already. Really, you truly can. And McDaniels, when I've seen him this preseason, he looks so like disengaged. Yeah. And some of his press conferences have been like outright weird. Yeah. I mean, he said some weird stuff a couple times. Like, I'm not even gonna look it up, but there was something about life being, we're all gonna die type thing. like, and it's funny. Yeah. But you're not supposed to be like entertaining people. You're supposed to be running a football team. Right. And I think that the culture over there is just totally dysfunctional. I am so bullish on that Miami team. I don't hate that take at all, and I actually could totally see a pathway to that. I wonder if there are odds on that on DraftKings.
I wonder. Yeah, I'd be curious, because he's definitely one of the coaches that are heading into this year in the hot seat, and it's just like everything is just setting up for an epic collapse in Miami this season, and I don't think he's around for the end of it.
Right. While you're saying that, and that coming to mind on that, like if you really think about it, that week 2 game, Patriots at Dolphins, that could really be key for that, because I think they do have a little bit of a tough schedule. And if somehow the Dolphins were to lose that week 2 game, which they usually kick the crap out of the Patriots down there in September, but if they were to lose, like that could really set them up to the kind of tough start that could lead to that.
Totally. It's the Patriots have a great opportunity to go 2-0 to start the season. If they're able to go down to Miami and get that monkey off their back and win in a place that they haven't been able to win at for years now, I think that's just kind of going to be the beginning domino that sets everything else in motion. For
I do want to take back what I just said about the tough schedule, though, because I'm looking at it right now. At Colts, Patriots, at Bills, which is tough. Jets, which could be a tougher game than you think. Then they got the Panthers, the Chargers, the Browns, the Falcons. So their schedule does get tougher in the second half. Ravens, Bills, Commanders. They got the Saints. They got the Steelers, the Jets again, the Bengals, the Bucks. But they you know, your point is well taken.
Yeah, and I actually think that front half of the schedule can sneakily be harder than it might appear at first glance. But I
agree with that, because the Colts could be tougher. Jets are probably going to be better. They're winning me over. Yep. And the Pats, aren't a pushover anymore. Panthers look better. So you're right.
And they're so injured. Like they are a team that I think is just being held together at this point with like duct tape and Elmer's glue. Like they are just ready to totally collapse in every sense, both spiritually and physically. So I think McDaniels has a good chance of being one of the first coaches fired in this 2025 NFL season.
And do you know who their backup quarterback is if Tua does like get the big hit and he's out for a long time?
Is it Quinn Ewers?
Ahead of him.
No,
Zach Wilson.
Oh yeah, Zach Wilson.
Famous Zach Wilson.
Yeah, exactly.
Notorious pretty boy / fun boy, Zach Wilson.
The Dolphins at this point have had 3 years now. This is the third year to go out and get a serviceable backup for Tua, knowing that he's a high risk player. And they have just continuously dropped the ball. And that's like something that I think is just unforgivable.
That really is like malpractice. Like that's GMing malpractice. Yes. You know what Tua is at this point. Like, how do you not get a good backup quarterback? Go trade for Kirk Cousins. I mean, anything.
Sign somebody. Anything. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get it.
But you can't roll with Zach Wilson. I mean, he is not the answer if Tua gets hurt.
Not at all.
Okay, Mayan, three into the future. Okay. We have talked a lot about the Cincinnati Bengals on this podcast, and the brilliance of Joe Burrow, who is clearly one of the best players in the league. He is one of the best quarterbacks, certainly in the league. One of the stories of this NFL season is going to be the failure of the Cincinnati Bengals to give Joe Burrow the tools he needs to contend for a Super Bowl. Yep. Burrow is brilliant. He is majestic. When you luck into a player like him in the draft, you should be a Super Bowl contender pretty much every year, and the Bengals can't do it because they can't get out of their own way. I know they signed Trey Hendrickson yesterday. That is not enough to solve what's wrong with this defense. The Bengals are on the fast track for another 8 or 9 win season. Zach Taylor will be gone after this year, and there will be legitimate questions this January about when and if Joe Burrow will be able to force his way out of Cincinnati, because he is wasting his prime with a franchise that does not know what to do with him.
I couldn't agree more with that, Dennis. You know how much I love Joe Burrow. I get it. They locked up T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Yeah, they did get, eventually they brought it, they got Shamar Stewart signed. They got Trey Hendrickson signed. But like the holes in that offensive line and the holes in that defense are still unforgivable at this point. It's a cheap organization. It's an organization that really is not showing any serious signs of trying to contend and win. I heard this the other day, and it's honestly, it's not even on the field related, but it was just something that made me laugh because it's a perfect microcosm of this organization. They're planning on doing like an alumni night or like a Bengals Hall of Fame night, something to that extent. And they didn't cover the travel costs for the people that they were inviting back, right? Like they told them to pay out of pocket for like their flights and their hotels and things like that. And I'm like, what is wrong with this organization? Like that to me is a perfect summation of everything that's wrong with them. They're corner cutters. They don't take things seriously. and they don't do the best to capitalize on the fact that they have some great talent in their prime right now, and they're going to let it fall short. I mean, you would think after that sophomore season, when he took them to a Super Bowl with a pretty weak roster top to bottom, that they would have pulled out, the stops to say, like the likes of which the Commanders are doing for Jaden Daniels, what the Broncos are doing for Bo Nix. Like, you would think they would have loaded him up and said, we're onto something. And if anything, they've just gotten worse and worse each year in terms of what they've put into that team. And I think it's unforgivable.
Don't the players have to cross a busy street to get from the practice facility to the practice field? Like, isn't that one of the things? Like, they built the practice facility in a way, or like they actually have to cross in their pads and their cleats, like a major thoroughfare.
Oh, I didn't even know that, but that wouldn't shock me. That would just be par for the course.
I mean, really, like, what other franchise would you see that kind of stuff with? I mean, and also on a much larger scale, second consecutive year where one of their 5 best players is in a major contract dispute with them. Right. There's been so much talk about Trey Hendrickson. I haven't heard the name Shamar Stewart. Is he signed? Is he ready?
I believe they did sign him.
They got him right a few weeks ago. Now that you mention it, right?
Yeah.
But that was it's like another window into, like, that shouldn't have even been so complicated.
Right.
Even the Trey Hendrickson thing, 1-year contract. Like, I mean, come on, man, right? Like, you're gonna sign the guy. You sign the guy, right? It sounds like they even did that on the cheap. So just a B-level franchise with an A+ level talent, and the talk this winter will be, will Joe Burrow want to leave that franchise?
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? Unless they pull a serious 180, I hope he does, because he's too talented to waste his career away in Cincinnati. Honestly,
it was a shame he ended up there in the first place. Honestly, he should have gone. If he'd gone to a team like a real franchise, it would have been really a match made in heaven.
Totally. Totally.
All right,
totally.
Your number 2.
All right, my number 2.
Into the future.
Looking into the future. So I think I am officially closing the window on the San Francisco 49ers. I think this is going to be the second. I think this is going to be the second consecutive year that they missed the playoffs. I think they have a good chance to finish third in that division. And I think this is going to officially lead to the rebuild in San Francisco. I think the window is firmly closed. They're older. They've lost a lot of talent. They're just, I think, leaps and bounds removed from that team that was contending for Super Bowls, just as recently as a few years ago. I think the window has been slammed shut. And I think this year it just seals the deal.
Vegas loves the 49ers this year. By the way, do you realize that?
I think that's crazy. I just, you know what? It's like, I look at them and I'm like, okay, Christian McCaffrey played 4 games last year and he's another year older.
Wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole in fantasy, by the way.
And I didn't. I passed on him. I have the 11th
pick, and realistically, he could fall to me. I'm taking Bucky Irvin over him. Not touching McCaffrey with a 10-foot pole.
I had the 10th pick last night in my big redraft league, and I passed on him. He was there. Didn't want to touch him. What's his name? The left tackle. Oh my God, his name's escaping me at the moment, but he's one of the best left tackles of all time. Trent Williams, one of the best left tackles of all time.
36, right?
Yeah, he's like 36, 37 years old right now. You lost Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk is going to be out at least like 6 weeks with the torn ACL. You just let go of guys like Dre Greenlaw and Hufanga in the defense. Like, this is a team that has taken big steps back, both in terms of talent and age. And I just don't see them being able to get back to where they were. And you know what? You signed Brock Purdy. You gave him that big contract. That's going to limit your ability to go out and spend elsewhere. I think the window is officially closed for the San Francisco 49ers.
Vegas has them at 10.5 wins. I'm looking at BetMGM right now, which should hammer the under. Yes. But like, what's really puzzling about that is like that is a respectable division. There's really not a bad team in that division. So there's no soft wins in that division. So just a little. It does sound very high at 10.5.
It does. I maybe they're just. I don't know. Maybe they're just banking on recency bias. I don't know. I'll tell you what, after this podcast is over, I'm going to hammer on under 10.5 wins because I think they will limbo right underneath that bar very easily. The minus is on the under too. So the money's going to minus 120 on the under. Yeah. So people are onto it. The other thing I'll say about the Niners is like the masochist in me, the part of me that would like maybe like watch a video of like someone getting beat up or a car accident. Not like I really like that stuff because I don't at all, but we all have that part of us, right? Yeah.
That part of me wants to see Mac Jones be the quarterback of the 49ers. Like I must see this experiment happen. Kyle Shanahan, you almost took him with the 3 pick a few years ago. I must see Mac Jones get in there. It will be entertaining whether it works or it turns into an epic disaster.
It would be a great storyline, wouldn't it? But you know what? But you also look at it and it's like, I get it. They still got Kittle, but Kittle's getting in the older side. And like we were just saying, their wide receiver room is decimated, right? I mean, Jawan Jennings is hurt. Brandon Ayuk is hurt. I forget the other guy's name, the fourth string guy. He is hurt. You got Ricky Pearsall. That's pretty much it right now. And Christian McCaffrey is literally a coin flip what his health is going to be. So yeah, I don't even, regardless of who's playing quarterback, I really don't know what the status of those weapons are going to be. But yeah, the Mac Jones experiment would be very interesting. See what Kyle Shanahan could get out of him. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, I think, is great at squeezing every little drop he can out of a quarterback. But yeah, I just don't think they got enough this year.
I mean, this year is kind of a huge referendum for the 49ers on that Brock Purdy contract because you're right. For all the reasons you just said, right? All the talent's getting older. Some of it's gone. Yep. Is that guy worth the $40 million you paid him?
Exactly.
That'll be interesting. Okay, my number 2, 3 into the future. Look, 2 years ago, the Chicago Bears fleeced, or so we thought, the Carolina Panthers by trading them the number 1 pick, and they took Bryce Young and they paid a king's ransom to do it. And for the last 2 years, everyone in Chicago, all the national media, all the guys on Get Up have been opining to us all about what a fleecing that was, how the Bears were able to get Caleb Williams and this boatload of talent, and the Panthers were stuck with Bryce Young. I can't wait to watch that narrative go complete topsy-turvy this year when Bryce Young proves he's a respectable quarterback. I gave him a ton of shit at different points, by the way.
I did too.
But he proved something last year, and he is a way better quarterback than Caleb Williams. I will say that definitively. When Caleb Williams goes belly up this year in that highly touted Ben Johnson offense, and Bryce Young is a respectable player that puts up decent production with a lot of talent around him in Carolina, it will completely flip-flop that narrative, and everyone's going to look on that trade totally different by the end of this year.
I totally agree. I love that take. The both of us, I think, have been saying even since before that draft that Caleb Williams should not have been the number 1 pick, and that we thought he was going to be a bust. The guy has really done nothing to prove us wrong. I keep hearing people talking about his raw talents, his raw athleticism. I've still yet to see that.
Yes, agreed.
And again, you can take some of the most physically talented guys. I mean, a la the Jamarcus Russell and some of those guys.
Yes.
And it's like if they don't have the mental game to be an NFL quarterback, the physical talents don't matter. I think we said from day one that not only did we question the talents of Caleb Williams, but even if the talents were there, we severely doubted his mental attributes and his ability to come in and lead an organization. And he's done nothing to change that narrative for me. I think this could be the year that the dam breaks. He's got all the weapons in the world. They rebuilt the offensive line. They brought in one of the best young offensive minds in the game to come be the head coach. If he can't take a step forward this year, and not only a step forward, like a big step forward,
right?
I think the walls come down.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like my biggest pet peeve with Caleb Williams is, look, you don't need to have immense physical talent to be a really good NFL quarterback. I mean,
Yeah.
it helps. Some of them do, but some of the best quarterbacks in the league are not always the most talented and vice versa. But my pet peeve with Caleb Williams is if I hear one more ESPN or NFL Network pundit talk about his overwhelming, exceptional physical talent, I'm going to go crazy. He's small. He is not that mobile, and his arm is good, but not great. I just don't get it. Like, I mean, I think the reason he's not going to be an NFL quarterback that's that very good is more because of what's in his head.
Exactly.
But it drives me nuts when they talk about this guy like he's Pat Mahomes. And I'm like, I've watched Pat Mahomes like running against his body, flick a ball across the field like 70 yards.
Right. Exactly.
Caleb Williams isn't doing that.
No.
Right. Caleb Williams can't do what Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes do. So let's stop talking about him like he's a physical freak. He is not.
Totally agree with you. And I agree. It's getting annoying hearing people trying to prop him up. It's turning into a Trevor Lawrence situation where, nobody just wants to face reality. They keep wanting to hold on to this narrative that this guy's got all the tools and he's this and he's that. I totally agree. I think he's a bust. And I think, like you said, it's going to go down as one of the biggest reversals in terms of narratives,
Complete 180.
Yeah.
All right, give me your number 3.
All right, my number 3, I'm going to go back to something that I said a few episodes ago, which at this point was probably a good 2 months ago, but I'm sticking with it. And I said, if Daniel Jones wins the starting job for the Indianapolis Colts, they will win the AFC South. And I'm sticking with that today. Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback. He's got weapons. They went out and drafted Tyler Warren. He's got Michael Pittman and Josh Downs. He's got a top 7 offensive line. He's got Jonathan Taylor. That defense is pretty good. I think and not only that, but the division they're playing in is pretty weak. I know everyone loves the Texans, but no one wants to talk about the fact that the Texans are starting, a couple rookie receivers behind Nico Collins, and they got a bottom 3 offensive line in the league. I think the Indianapolis
They just
Colts
cut Trent Brown, by the way.
They just cut Trent Brown. I think the Indianapolis Colts are going to win the AFC South and be a 9 or 10 win team this year.
I don't hate that take. In fact, I just did a future ticket at DraftKings where I picked all 4 division winners in the AFC, and I picked the Colts as my AFC South winner.
There you go.
I'm not a huge believer in that Houston team. I think CJ Stroud still has a lot to prove. I really do.
Yeah.
I think people are easily fooled by big statistics. We have to remember this is the big numbers era of the NFL. This is the juiced ball era of the NFL, if you will. Like volume-based passing statistics lie. I think Stroud is a good quarterback. He has a lot to prove. So I'm very skeptical of that Houston team, and I like Indianapolis. I think they might be top to bottom the best team in the AFC South. So I think that's a good take.
Yeah, and you know what? I again, it just comes down to a lot of different factors, and like you said, they're playing in one of the weakest divisions in football, and I wouldn't be shocked for Daniel if Daniel Jones went out there and had a what's his name, a Sam Darnold type season, and
or just even like some facsimile thereof.
Yeah,
right?
I think he got a little bit of a bad rap in New York, and I think he's got in a much better situation right now. He's got something to prove. And I think he's actually not as bad of a quarterback as some people think. So
yeah, well, I mean, the trend in the league has been, quarterback reclamation projects, right?
Yeah.
So wouldn't Jones fit in perfectly with that?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's very fitting, or not very fitting, but very telling. I did think at some point Daniel Jones would take over as the starting quarterback for the Colts. I think it's very telling that they made the decision right out of camp that he's our quarterback for the season. That's a true.
Yeah. That's something we might not have time to get too into today, but I agree with that. I mean, like what an epic screw up taking Anthony Richardson was. And I'm sorry, like if you take this guy number 4, you knew he only had 12 or 13 starts in college. They should have never played him as soon as they did. And then to pull him with like a quick hook, it's just total mismanagement from an organizational level.
Totally. And we're starting to see that trend now, him, Trey Lance, some of these guys that everyone's hyping up their physical tools, their this, their that, their potential. But the reality is when you play a handful of games in college and then try to jump to the professional level, I mean, welcome to the league. Like, that's not an easy transition to make. And we've seen it fail multiple times now.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, and look at the other side of the coin. Look at a kid like Bo Nix, who started more games in college than anyone in NCAA history. Yep. He gets into a good situation with Sean Payton, a good team around him, and all of a sudden he blows expectations out of the water as a rookie, right? Versus a guy like Anthony Richardson, who had almost no experience playing the position, and here he is 2 years later, really on the bench.
Exactly. So all that to say that Colts are going to win the AFC South. That's my third future prediction.
All right. Well, we'll get more into that maybe next time, because we're going to have time to fill before an actual game has been played. Okay. My third take is very simple. It pains me to give this take, Justin, because I so want it to be otherwise. And that's because I just am so done with Aaron Rodgers. I can't stand Aaron Rodgers, and I want him to fail. I want it to be a clown show. We are not going to get the Aaron Rodgers of 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not saying that, but just from what I've seen coming out of Pittsburgh, the way they've looked in the preseason, the strength of Mike Tomlin as a personality and a head coach, I'm sorry, the Aaron Rodgers thing, it's not going to be a total disaster like it was with the Jets, like we all so desperately want it to be, so we can continue to laugh. It's not going to be brilliant. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be a Super Bowl, but it could well be a playoff spot. It's not going to be a total disaster with Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh.
And I like that. You know what? Aaron Rodgers is not going to have to be the Aaron Rodgers of old, right? I mean, this is going to be a classic Arthur Smith offense. They're going to play the short game. They're going to run the ball down your throats to the point where it's exhausting. He's got a decent O-line. He's got a good defense, and he's
a great defense. And they signed that guy McQueen too.
Patrick Queen. And then, and look, and you know what? We've talked about this. I still think Mike Tomlin is one of the best head coaches in the NFL. He's proven it time and time again. I think, like you said, I don't think the Steelers are destined for a Super Bowl. I don't think they're destined for a 12, 13 win season, but I wouldn't be shocked to see them beat expectations and be fighting for a wild card spot at the end of the year.
That's what I feel like, and I feel like I would love to just totally pan this and be like, this is going to be a total burnout and disaster, but it's just not the case at all. It's just I just don't think it's going to happen that way.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Justin? I think that's all. We took up a lot of time today, but I think it was a great episode. We went through a lot. Patriots around the league. We got a lot to talk about. It's still, 9 days until the first game and 2 weeks, almost 12 days until the Patriots play.
Yeah. And you know what? Hey, I'm gonna throw something wild out there. If Micah Parsons is on the field for the opening game in Thursday Night Football, it wouldn't shock me if the Cowboys came out and upset the Eagles. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, you see, I see that game totally different. I'm just going to be honest with you. Like Dallas, we should briefly talk about Dallas and what a mess it is with Micah Parsons and a rookie head coach going into that stadium. I don't think Micah Parsons will even be on the field. I Justin, cannot remember in my lifetime as a sports fan, in any sport, not just football, a contract dispute is nasty as this Micah Parsons, Jerry Jones, Dallas Cowboy dispute is. I think it's a huge distraction for a rookie coach that is not experienced enough to handle it. And I think the Eagles are going to murder the Cowboys in that game, but I've been wrong about many of them. So
I hope they do, because I got the Eagles defense in my dynasty. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, what is it? September 4th, so little over a week away.
Yeah, 1 week from 2 nights. Yeah, 9 days.
9 days. All right.
All right, man. Good. Well, listen, that's all the time we're going to take up. We want to thank everyone that listened to this episode of the Dr. Football Ultimate Patriots podcast. Have a great week. Enjoy the final days of summer. Fall is coming. Football is coming. And we are looking forward to recording weekly. and really covering all of it. So stay on the lookout for new episodes. Be healthy, be well, be safe, and we'll catch you next week, everyone.